well, if you want to work with me, then I can give you the rest of this, right? They kind of try to make that. I think people feel a little played by that.
What's going on, guys? My name is Brad, and I'm joined with Isabel Affinito. She is a 30 under 30 realtor for 2018.
Mm-hmm.
2018. Yep, 2018. So she's been crushing it down in Austin, Texas, but she hasn't always been crushing it. She's actually had a pretty tough past her first year or so, and she's going to dive in and help you succeed at the next level of your career, whether or not you're a new realtor or you've been doing this for a while and you're just still struggling to get listings or be at the point where you'd like to be. So Isabel, thank you so much for joining us on the Millennial's Guide to Real Estate. Let's dive in with your background and what got you up to this point.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Brad. So I started in real estate when I was graduating from college in 2011. I had a history and theology major, which is not exactly a recipe for getting hired.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
So somehow tables for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So somehow I stumbled my way into commercial real estate. Luckily, my university, Villanova, where I went, has a really strong alumni network in commercial real estate. So I initially went into a salaried position in commercial real estate and then eventually got licensed with the intention of being a commercial broker. Tried that for a little while. It wasn't the best fit for me. And one thing that I learned is that I'm not the best employee. So I ended up splitting off to do my own thing in residential real estate, which was totally an accident. I really didn't intend for that to be a long-term career change for me. It was really just a way to make a little bit of money until I figured out what I was going to do next. But it turned out that I really liked residential real estate. So here I am today.
What was it about commercial that turned you off?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it wasn't the best lifestyle fit for me. So, my husband and I travel a lot. We probably leave town at least every 6 weeks, for a couple of days and go down to Mexico and spend some time on the beach. Or we spent 3 weeks in Europe a little over a year ago. We really like that kind of flexible lifestyle. And there's an expectation in commercial real estate that, number one, you're going to be in the office a lot. Mm-hmm. And number two, you're going to pay your dues as a junior broker until you get to a certain place. And then you get to graduate to the money and the good life and all that stuff. But that's supposed to happen in your 30s. Okay. And I was a little impatient. I didn't really want to wait that long. And I also had some concerns about, what happens if I want to have kids? If I pay my dues in my 20s and then I'm supposed to cash in my 30s, if that happens to be when I get pregnant and then want to take a little time off, what's that going to do to my career? And I just wasn't in love with it anyway.
Okay, so if I get this straight, the commercial real estate side has a longer dues, you pay your dues longer for commercial. It's more it's like getting your PhD or something. You gotta grind harder and longer for that payoff, but the payoff is typically more. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it's probably on average it's more than you make in residential, but I don't think that the ceiling is any higher necessarily. The reason that it takes so much longer to get started is because the deals take longer to close. So you might be working on a commercial deal for 2 or 3 years before it ever closes, and then you get your first check, and then you might not get all the way paid for another year or two. So it just takes a really long time to build up a reputation to where, for example, 7-Eleven was a client that I had worked with. Takes a while before 7-Eleven trusts you to do their business and help them open new locations. It's not quite the same as getting Mr. and Mrs. Jones to sign up with you at an open house. It's just kind of a different thing.
Well, I was going to say too, the different type of mindset and clientele and customer, because those people have houses as well, but just the terms of thinking and how you speak with, how you, I guess it's a lot more number crunching than a typical family or single person that's looking to buy a property. So what's the difference there?
Yeah, there's a lot of differences. I think one big difference is that in residential, there's more of, I don't know how to explain this.
Is it emotions?
There's a lot more emotions, yeah. Sometimes I feel like I'm a therapist for my clients a little bit, and I very often become friends with them. And, they share things with me about when they want to have children and what finances are like in their marriage and the struggles that they have with their financial life and what they want out of life. I don't know that you necessarily have those kinds of conversations with a business that you're helping open like business locations. I think it's just a different thing.
Right. What's funny is that when I became a realtor, I realized I hated being a realtor because I was dealing with residential, and I'm way more left-brained and love seeing real estate as numbers, not as anything emotional. So for me, it's more of a vehicle to invest in and retire and have the lifestyle, not something where it needs to be pastel colored walls with crown molding and blah, blah, blah. To me, that doesn't make sense. But it's just so funny because there's a niche for everyone if you just find it, if you go and search and actually try different things. So let's fast forward to when you became a residential realtor. Where were you? Are you back in Jersey still?
Yeah, so we were still living in New Jersey. So I hung my real estate. I needed a place to put my license is the first thing that happened. So I walked down the street from our condo in Hoboken and walked into the place on the corner and said, hey, can I hang my license here for a couple of months until I go get another job in commercial real estate or whatever it is I'm going to do next. I had a couple of deals that I had to close out. Like there were a few commercial deals that came with me. And so I needed a place to put my license so that I could legally finish those deals. And while that was all happening, it was like, oh, well, rents around here are like $3,000 a month and you get paid a month's brokerage fee. Like maybe I could just do a couple rentals. And so that's how the whole thing started. I was closing out those commercial deals. I started doing some rentals. I started making way better money than I had been making in commercial. And I was making my own hours and all this kind of stuff. So that was pretty enticing, but it was all rentals. And I remember as I sort of settled into the fact that I was staying in residential real estate, I didn't understand how to make the leap to sales. I was like, I've got all these rental clients and I kind of know how to do the rental game. I did like 60 rentals in my first year, which was crazy. It was just a lot of work.
How'd you get to that number? Is it mostly hard work, or were there certain skills that you had learned or naturally had? Because that does sound like a really high number.
Yeah, I have the capacity to work pretty long hours and I'm pretty determined. So that was part of it. I hustled really hard. I was in the office. I took walk-ins, people would walk into the office and I would convert them into a client. I got really familiar with the rentals in the market so that I could talk about it when people walked in. I posted on Craigslist. I hired a company out of India for like $3 an hour to just post Craigslist rental listings for me.
You're that spammer. Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I did whatever I needed to do to make it work, partly because, my experience of working for a boss had shown me that like that hadn't been a good fit. And I was so afraid of making a mistake and like ending up in the wrong role again that I was determined to make ends meet. And so that I would have the flexibility to only go into another job if it was really going to be the right fit. So there was like an element of fear of failure there, definitely. I had kind of removed my option to fail because just going and getting another job was not an option that I was considering. I was like, if I'm going to work for somebody else, it has to be right. It's got to be the right fit. I need to know I'm going to be happy and I need to get paid enough. And in the meantime, I'm just going to do this.
Right. So you pretty much burnt the bridges and you said, I'm going to give myself everything 100% towards this. I think that's what a lot of realtors they expect, that success of the full-time realtor, but giving the work of the part-time. And I mean, like in LA, it's funny, everyone's a model, actor, realtor, personal trainer, but everyone wants to succeed in all of that and have the $1 million listings from the TV shows, be the celebrity personal trainer, and also be the highest paying, highest grossing actor. And
each of those things is more than a full-time job. I mean, running your own business is more than a full-time job. It takes everything. Like it's taken me a lot of time to reclaim my life from my business.
Well, that's one of the common questions is how do you, now that you're way more successful than you were when you started, you're still busy, but now you're getting the customers, the clients, you're closing the transactions. And how do you balance life? You have a husband, you have a personal life. Do you have kids or kids on the way?
We don't have any children. We've been talking about it. And so that's one thing that's on my mind now is how do I adjust my business so that I won't have to work 80 hours a week when we have children? Because I do want to raise my children. I'll definitely take help, but I do not want to entirely hand that over to someone else.
Of course.
So that's something I'm currently thinking about.
But
the way that I have found some balance in my own life is I had to force myself. It's probably been about 2 years ago now. I had to force myself to start taking a day off because
A
I
full
look
day.
a full day. I take a full day off. Every Friday, my phone is either on airplane or I just ignore it and I do not work. And my clients all know that. And I have an assistant who, if there's something that needs to happen, she can take care of it on Friday. But I just tell people, look, you're not going to be able to reach me on Friday. And
And
it took,
Saturday and Sunday is not the option because that's the dates of open houses, and you got to meet the clients and drive them around. So it has to be a Friday and Monday. All the emails usually come in too, and people want responses.
right. And Monday is kind of the day that I set the tone for the whole week, right? Like if
Mhm.
I get into the office on time on Monday and I do some prospecting and I get my schedule under control, I'm going to have a good week. So I don't want it to be Monday because I feel like that short circuits the whole week. I played around with this a lot. It's like, what day should it be? And somehow I just landed on Fridays.
Hey,
Um,
good day to
and
have off. Yeah.
so that has been transformative for me in my life and my business. Because I found myself, before I committed to that, I would find myself thinking like, when do I ever get a break? And all I ever do is work. And I wish I had time to do X, Y, and Z. So I just decided I'm taking some time. Like on Fridays, I'm going to walk the dog. I'm going to go to yoga. I started taking dance lessons. I've taken up watercoloring. So like I have these things that I do on Friday that give me a sense of self outside of just being a real estate agent.
Very cool. So what brought you to this point though? Because now you're seeing a lot more success. You've been working hard for what, 6 years, 7 years now? Or
Yeah.
2011, yeah, like 8 years, a long time. And I think a lot of new realtors don't understand how long it takes of hard work and learning to get to this point. But what are some of the secrets and learning lessons that have taken you from day one to 30 under 30 realtor? And you said about 15 million in sales for your team.
Mhm.
That's a very successful business you got. And I know it's only scratching the surface.
Thank you. The number one thing that that I can say my success came from would be, this is cliche, but I have to throw it out there: perseverance. I've had so many failures and so many times I've been told no, and so many times I thought about quitting and I just didn't. So that's number one. The number two thing would be get a coach or a mentor. So when I committed to coaching and I paid a lot of money for it, I have a coach that I've been working with for several years, Jason Edwards, who's now doing some coaching programs online as well. When he came into my life and he taught me how to sell, that was really important for me, because before that I didn't know how to sit a buyer down in a buyer's appointment and get a buyer's representation agreement. I didn't know how to control a listing appointment. And he taught me how to do those things, so that instead of just hustling and hoping things would happen, he taught me how to make things happen intentionally.
So, okay, you talked about his programs. I know training is very important because you kind of get thrown into this career where you could take it in any direction, and some people are succeeding, most are failing. Do you know of any other training programs, books, podcasts, anything else that have really helped you learn quicker than just failing over and over again?
Oh, there's so many good resources out there. For any real estate agent, I would definitely pick up Gary Keller's book, Millionaire Real Estate Agent. That one is just a classic, and most people don't follow the order. And I can't even say that I've followed it exactly myself, but I've read that book probably 3 times and gone through and highlighted and taken notes and everything else. It's a blueprint. It's a blueprint for success in your business. And then I have a whole list of other books that are like self-help, motivation, getting your head right about money. I could go on.
Okay, all right. Name a couple, because I love that stuff too.
Oh man. The classics, Think and Grow Rich, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Dale Carnegie, yep.
Yeah, some of the newer ones that I've read more recently that I've really enjoyed. Well, 4 Hour Work Week was transformative for me too. That was actually something that gave me the courage to quit my commercial real estate job.
And I was going to say that outsourcing to India for that person to go on Craigslist, that's a Tim Ferriss hack all day long. That's a Fiverr or Elance, whatever is going on back in 2006 when he wrote it. Phenomenal book, but really, and then the One Thing by Gary Keller is a phenomenal book as well, because it is so good for, it's so great for honing in on what is producing the results, and then eliminating everything else. So it's like going into that part of Tim Ferriss's 4-hour work week, but then going into that time, productivity, and how to maximize every minute and every hour doing what really matters, not what you think matters. Like, oh, let me design my business card, let me declutter my desk, when in actuality, calling clients, setting up appointments, that is the majority of it.
Yes. And in fact, I was tempted to say that the number one thing was committing to prospecting.
Mm-hmm.
But I decided not to say that as number one, because if you commit to persevering and you get a coach, then prospecting is going to have to happen, because your coach is going to tell you that it is the most important thing that you could do. And if you spend enough time falling on your face, writing blogs and expecting people to come to your website and expecting them to use your IDX and thinking that marketing is going to work, I spent so much money on all of that crap. And the most important thing that I could have done with that time instead would have been to just pick up the phone. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a lesson that eventually every real estate agent learns if they're going to stay in the business. Just pick up the phone every day, like four times a week right now for me. And that's, and I have an established base. If you're brand new and you really want to succeed, it's probably six days a week you're picking up the phone.
I think that's a normal human behavior, where we want to do the things to cross off the list because it makes us feel like we've accomplished something, rather than doing the hard thing that actually provides the results that we hate doing. So it's like one of those things where, well, let me declutter, let me go through my email and send some emails, or go out, clean the junk. And I'm someone that does that as well, where I know that there's something really important I should be doing, but it's not as enjoyable. It's a bit painful. How do you get past that I don't know, that uncomfortability? Is that a word? I don't even know if that's a word.
Yeah. So the picking up the phone is not really uncomfortable for me anymore. It used to be, but it's hard for me to even remember why now, because it's actually enjoyable for me. And I remember times when Jason would say in the past in our coaching programs and things like that, there are actually agents who enjoy prospecting hour. There are actually agents who enjoy picking up the phone, and that I didn't really ever think that would be me, but now here I am saying that, right? So it just happens eventually. I think it's like any habit. Oh, another great book, The Power of Habit, another great one. Okay. So it's become a habit for me. And the way that I now think about it is that I know if I pick up that phone, I'm going to make money. It might not be today, but that phone call will lead to money. And it is the number one most important thing that I can do. So there have been several things that went into me getting over my fear of it. One is getting more comfortable on the phone, because I learned what to say. And I also I try to think of the person on the other side of the phone as a human being, right? And have a normal human conversation with that person. Like I'm not too salesy when I pick up the phone.
So it's kind of like you're leading with, I care for this person, rather than I'm trying to close this sale. I'm trying to sell this person something. And I think that's one of the most misunderstood things regarding sales. Is sales in a lot of people's mind is the car salesman, where their job is to push something on me for the most amount of profit that I don't necessarily want. And I think everyone has had that bad experience where if you talk to someone and they're genuinely concerned with who you are, what you want out of life, where your position is, what your situation is, you'll naturally sell them something just because they want to do business with you, because you're actually providing the best solution to their problem. And I think that's a big problem in every industry, not just real estate, not just automotive, but pretty much anything.
And I think part of the problem is sales gets a bad rap because bad sales interactions are really noticeable because they're so uncomfortable. And so when people think sales, they think of the bad sales interactions they've had with a car salesperson or whomever. They don't notice the good sales interactions they've had because they don't feel like they're being sold.
Mm-hmm.
Like
exactly.
They feel like they just had this great interaction, and that's a great business person, and they really understood me, and then we ended up doing business together. But they
solved my problem.
Right, they solved my problem. They don't say like they sold me, but that is actually what happened. So people always think of only the bad aspect of sales, where you feel like you're being pressured to do something you don't want to do.
Right. So let me ask you something. If you started over today in 2019, knowing what you know now, but you had just gotten your license yesterday, what would you do differently?
Ooh, that's a tough question, because knowing what I know now about how hard it was to get to where I am now, I don't know if I would have the fortitude to do it again. I
All right,
might
guys,
be.
if you just got licensed, give up. Sorry, find something else.
I mean, I might consider joining a team. You know, if I was starting over today and I really knew everything that I know now, like for example, if I moved to a new city, I'm not sure that I would start over doing residential real estate on my own. Like I would probably consider joining an established team first, because the biggest challenge in real estate is having leads, number one, and then knowing if you're able to get them, what the heck do you do with them? You do eventually figure out number two, and number two becomes a lot easier. Like the business of selling real estate is not actually that hard. The hard part is generating leads. So if I were to give myself some advice, knowing that I was going to stay on the path that I chose, it would be to focus on talking to as many people as possible. However you can go about doing it. Open houses, networking events, meeting people at bars, getting on the phone, whatever you need to do to talk to human beings is the number one most important thing that you can do. Don't worry about the website. Don't worry about the blog. Don't worry about any of that crap. Just talk to people, period. And if you do that, then you'll make money.
What is the biggest lesson? If you wouldn't really go back and do anything different, what is the biggest lesson you've learned about real estate that someone needs to learn when getting in?
Ooh.
I know, right?
Tough one. The biggest lesson. This is probably my biggest one. Don't overlook the people that you already know. For some reason, when I got into the business, I neglected people I already knew in favor of strangers, like Zillow leads, Craigslist leads, whatever. I don't know why. I think it was because I kind of knew at the beginning that I didn't know what I was doing, and I would rather learn those lessons with strangers than like embarrass myself with people that I knew. I think that's probably why I went that direction. But it took me way too long to look up and realize, wait a minute, I've formed this habit of chasing strangers and I'm neglecting my past clients, my sphere, referrals, people I already know. And once I started to move back to that, so I had this happened to me maybe a little over a year ago, was when I realized this. And I have my database categorized into A, B, C. A is like past clients or people who've sent me referrals. B's are people who are likely to know who I am when I call. And then C's are just like cold leads, internet leads, people who've never answered the phone, people who don't remember me, that kind of thing. So have you ever watched that show Arrested Development?
I know the one guy is Arrested Development. Maybe it's Parks and Rec. I keep getting the two confused, but I've never watched either. I know I like the cast of both.
Business.
What's that?
In Arrested Development, there's like this family real estate business.
Okay.
And they started out by having this banana stand at the beach where they did like frozen bananas or something like that. And the dad, who ends up going to jail for some kind of like fraud or something, keeps telling his son, there's always money in the banana stand because the family business is not going well. Well, it turns out that what he means is he has hidden like 250 grand in cash in the walls of the banana stand. So it's like this whole episode is about so I have a point to this. So I started telling myself there's always money in the banana stand, which was to remind myself to focus on the A's and the B's, because I was neglecting the A's and the B's in favor of the C's. So I started just reminding myself, Isabel, there's always money in the banana stand.
And there's only A's and B's in the word banana. There are no C's. I'm not sure if you noticed that, but
yeah, in case any of you are a little slow on the uptake.
Yeah. B-A-N-A-N-A. That's pretty good. That's a lot of A's. Focus on the A's, and then there's a B.
I don't have any N's. I don't know. I'm gonna have to find a category for N now. Whatever, doesn't matter. I'm not here to get too specific. So when I started remembering that there's always money in the banana stand, and I started calling my A's and my B's, all of a sudden I'm getting repeat clients and referrals. And oh yeah, that person who told me that 6 months from now they might want to buy, I called them back, at the right time, and they were actually ready. So it just got so much easier than trying to get complete strangers to trust and like me enough to talk to me. It was like, these people already trust and like me.
Exactly.
So that's the other lesson that I would give is don't wait too long to start focusing on your sphere.
Okay. And then, damn, I just forgot my question. It was so good. Hold on. Oh, okay. So why do people in Austin, Texas choose to work with you and your team? What is your marketing strategy, or what are you and your team known for that stand out?
Sure. That's a great question. So we do a lot of work in Central Austin. So if somebody is interested in Central Austin, I can rattle off, stats about what's going on. We invest ourselves in Central Austin. My husband builds in Central Austin. So if I can look at somebody and say, oh, you're looking central, well, my husband builds in that zip code and I have listings in that zip code and we live in that zip code and our office is in that zip code and we have off-market listings in that zip code, that's pretty irresistible to people. They're probably at least going to give me an email address at the open house if I lead with that. Hey, you want me to send you some stuff that's not online so that maybe you won't get beat out in a multiple offer situation? They're like, yes, here is my information, please. The other thing that I have done, and I know I've been all about prospect, don't worry about marketing, but the other thing that I have done is put together as many resources as I possibly can for my clients, and then I go ahead and share those with anybody else who wants them. So I don't really hold very much close to my chest. I'm pretty open with everything. I just had a situation this week where, it was last week actually, but who cares? Had a situation last week where I had met this couple at a party a couple of weeks ago. And they said to me, we're looking to buy a house. I'm pregnant. We need to move. We're looking to buy a house. But we have this family friend who's an agent who's helping us. And I said, okay, great. But they gave me their phone number anyway. I don't know why. Gave me their phone number. So I followed up with her a couple of days later and she said, we're good. We're working with this agent. He's got us covered. I said, okay, well, I have some resources that I share with buyers that are educational. Would you like me to send those to you? And she said, yes, please. So I put her on an automatic email drip, 5 emails. At the end of those 5 emails, she reached out to me and said, we really loved the stuff that you sent to us. This is way more information than our other agent has given us. We feel like you really know what you're doing and we want to work with you.
Wow. And that was just offering value, no intent to steal someone away. It's just, here's legitimate information that you'll need going through this process. And they made the decision to say, what, I trust Isabel more than this other realtor with this big decision in my life. That's cool. That's good stuff right there.
And one thing that she said to me on the phone that I thought was really powerful and really interesting, she said, I just feel like if you're willing to share all of this for free, this is so valuable. You must have so much more value to offer than this if this is what you're willing to give away.
Wow. See, that's a compliment right there.
Yeah. So I would think about, there are plenty of agents out there who are close with their information. Oh, well, they kind of tempt you with a little bit. And then they're like, well, if you want to work with me, then I can give you the rest of this. Right. They kind of try to make that. I think people feel a little played by that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's plenty of other places that they can go. I mean, in Austin, there's 13,000 licensed agents. Wow. So I know what my competition is. And what I have found is if I can put all of that, like, especially if the information is easily shareable, I built this thing to be super valuable for my clients, but instead of making it private, I'm just going to make it public. And then other people can use it.
I was going to say, that's very Gary V of you, because Gary V preaches that. And
interesting.
Yeah, Gary V's the man. So if you don't watch or listen to Gary V as a realtor, I highly suggest it, because he's one of those guys that, even though he's not in real estate, he's all about giving away his best information free, and people feel indebted to him. I mean, I feel like I owe him because he's so genuine, so authentic. He gives so much amazing value and inspiration that whatever book comes out, even if I never read it because I know all the information from his podcast and everything else, I'd rather just know that he's getting the money because I know how much I owe him from what I've gotten from him already. But in this world of information, the information's out there, period. You don't have any secrets that someone can't find online. So give it away, have the best intentions, and even if 1% will come back to you and say thank you or appreciate it, well, that's 1% more than you had before.
Yeah. I will follow up to this and say, I think that that you do have to draw a line though. So as generous as I am with all of this information, I do have standards for how I do business and who I do business with. So if you want to go to my online resources, which takes me 2 seconds to send you a link, great, do that all day. If you want to follow me on Facebook and watch the videos that I'm putting out there, fantastic, do it all day. But as soon as somebody wants me to commit significant amounts of time to them, that's when I draw that line and say, okay, here's what I need for the way that I do business. And it gives that client the opportunity to then step over the line and show themselves to be serious about being my client. So what I mean by that is I don't put a buyer in my car and drive them around to look at homes if we're not on a buyer's representation agreement together. So
Sure.
they come, well, I mean, you'd be amazed how many agents do though. And I used to drive people around just hoping that if I was nice enough, they would, be loyal.
Right.
That didn't work out very well. So people come in, buyers come into my office, they sit down, we do an appointment. I make sure that they understand how the process works and how I get paid. And then they sign something that says that they're going to buy a house with me. And then we go look at stuff. For a listing, like I'm not doing free or discount work on a listing. We are sitting down a listing appointment and signing a listing agreement. So just to clarify that for any new agents, they're definitely give away your information, and even better as a new agent, talk about your journey and be vulnerable. Like if you want to go on Facebook and say, here's a failure that I had today, or if you want to go on Facebook and say, here's a lesson that I learned. This might seem super obvious to people, but I didn't know it until today. People will relate to that. So share that kind of stuff, but do have standards for how you do business, because you have to protect your time. It's the most valuable thing that you have. And you have to protect yourself too. If you're running around with a bunch of wahoos that you don't know and you haven't even seen their ID, like realtors get killed and assaulted and vacant homes. Like you need to be safe. So I just want to make sure I say that.
Yeah, you don't want that story to be you.
No, God.
Lastly, last couple of questions is there an app, a program, a software that's really changed the game for you just in terms of operating your business, productivity, making things easier?
I would say the number one is Trello. So Trello is what I have used to build out resources for my clients, like it's basically a project management tool. So I've used that to build out boards for my buyers and my sellers that have a ton of resources. And that's kind of what I use to share that value with other people too. Until recently, I was saying Trello's free, definitely go sign up for it. And until recently, it has been free. Now they have like a limited number of team boards that you can have. So it does carry a cost now, but I still think it's worthwhile.
Okay. And then lastly, closing up, someone just got their license yesterday. It's 2019, really competitive, but they're determined that this is going to be their career. What would you do if you're starting over in the first 90 days? Like from finding a broker to having your plan to anything else that you'd think of, knowing what you know now.
Finding a broker, that one's tough. I don't know. At the beginning of your career, I don't know how important your broker is. I would say sign up with somebody that you like the people at the company, you like the broker, and if they have training that you think is legitimate, great. Otherwise, don't worry too much about your broker. It's a place to hang your license. Just get started somewhere. The way that I would structure my days in the first 90 days is that I would look at the MLS every day to get familiar with what's out there. Look at like what got listed in the last 7 days and just start to get familiar with that. I would prospect every day for probably 2 or 3 hours. So I would be setting a goal in your first 90 days. If you could have 100 conversations a week, that would put you on track to start actually making money. And that probably sounds like a lot of conversations because it is. I've done it before many times in my business. When I wanted to jumpstart my business, I would commit to 100 conversations a week for several weeks. And that is enough to get you into appointments. And then I would commit to some social events. So find some networking events and things like that. And that's pretty much all I would do in those first 90 days. And then if you're able to get appointments and clients, then go take care of them. But then make sure you protect your morning prospecting time and get it done every day.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Isabel. Any final words for new realtors?
God bless you.
God bless you all. Yes. You can contact Isabel at spyglassrealty.com. The sign is in the back of her head right there. She's in central Austin, Texas, one of the coolest cities in America, one of the few I've never been, but I only hear great things about.
So, as many people would say, it's fantastic, don't move here, but I'm an agent. So move here and make sure you call me.
Yeah, absolutely. Contact Isabel. The link and everything is down below in the video description. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, see you later and have a great rest of your 2019.
Thanks, Brad.